Paintball now is everything that I wished for when I was just little rookie at 20 years old as SWAT. What the game is now is what I hoped it would become. Like everyone, effort, would practice. We couldn't get people to do that back in those days.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Down Under Paintball. This is episode 23, and I'm sitting down with Rob Ambrose, aka Rookie. So, Rob's had an amazing career, done some incredible things, and the coolest part about it is he's still out playing and competing to this day. I saw him on the field at the time of this recording, just last weekend, and he covers in this show just a little bit about how the sport's changed over the years and how the new formats coming through with 10-man seeing a resurgence and also 7-man have sort of given these older guys a bit of a home, and they're able to use some of the skills that they learnt back in the day playing on the woods fields and the hyperball fields that teams really don't have that much experience with these days. As well as covering Rob's story himself, he gave us a really good insight into what it looked like in the top tier of the competitive paintball scene in Australia at that time, around the mid to late 90s. So this episode once again was brought to you by my patrons over on Patreon. So thank you all once again for your continued support. If you do want to support the show directly, just head over to patreon.com/dupaintball. And with that, we're going to jump straight into this episode of Down Under Paintball.
Okay, I need to find paintball again.
If that's the kind of commitment you're going to give, then that's the kind of commitment I want. So I'm sticking.
You're listening to Down Under Paintball.
I mean, everybody on that team was a veteran. Everybody.
This is Will McDonald, and you're listening to Down Under Paintball.
It does make it a more interesting sport for the masses.
They are doing it better than anyone else, to be honest.
Yeah, show other women that might be interested in playing that, hey, you can go out there and you can be successful in this sport.
I've got the best seat in the house with some of the best paintball in Australia.
And you're listening to Down Under Paintball.
I don't enter into the politics. I'm not interested. I'm just trying to, grow the sport, get more people playing paintball.
Sitting here this week with everyone calls him Rookie, but also goes by Rob Ambrose. How's it going?
I'm actually all right. Actually, much better now I'm talking to you.
Oh, that's good.
I hope it doesn't sound awkward.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, how's everything going? How's life treating you?
Everything's cool and sexy right now.
Yeah, that's the way to be.
I'm laying here. No, actually, I'm not. I do have clothes on. I'm laying on the bed.
Yeah.
But I'm
glad. I do say to everyone, this is an audio-only podcast, so pants are optional.
Well, knowing me, I probably would have no pants, but this time I decided to let the listeners imagine what I'm wearing. Maybe we'll do that.
Yeah, we can paint a bit of a picture. But so before we get rolling and talking about paintball, I just want to talk about your job. What do you do for work?
Okay. It takes a bit of explaining, but basically I catch snakes. I'm a snake catcher. And people go, really? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, that's a job? And I'm like, yes, that's why I'm telling you it's a job, because that's what it is. They're like, oh, okay, how'd you get into that? And I'm like, oh, it's a long story. But I've been doing it for over 10 years professionally. And it all comes down to that people are scared of snakes and they have them in their yard, that they're worried about them, and sometimes people want them removed. I wouldn't have them removed personally, but people don't want snakes in their backyard. So they often get called in to catch snakes. And this has been an ongoing thing, like I was saying, for over 10 years. And it's grown in popularity for some reason, I don't know. The other thing I do is I do a snake show, which is every Sunday. So Sunday afternoons I do a snake show, which sort of coincides with Sunday's usually paintball. Is it in the morning, so I can do a bit of paintball in the morning. But because of COVID, no snake shows at all at the moment. But during COVID, people were home seeing snakes. So I did it. didn't do too bad there for a couple of months. There was a lot of people at home, and because they're home all day, they now noticed a snake that would come out and just in their yard or wherever. I mean, snakes appear in a number of places in your house. They come into your house sometimes. Many different situations.
Yeah, I've always been like, I grew up in the bush and we always had snakes around, but I figured I'd rather snakes than mice. So as long as they weren't poisonous, we kept them around.
Oh, no, they're the best ones. I always tell this to people. Like, the venomous ones are actually the better ones. And people are like, what? Like, yeah, way cooler. Like, imagine being a snake and not being venomous. Like, wouldn't that suck? You're like, people are fearful of you. I'm like, but I've got no venom. Like, what do you? I can't do anything to you. But people are equally scared.
Yeah, okay.
Snake.
Yeah.
Very
Well, that's as far as my snake goes, I'm just looking over to my right here. I've got my children's python, Addie. She lives in a little cage there. She's cruising, sitting under a light, having fun.
You have a little pet snake?
Yeah, I've had her since I was 13, so she's nearly 20 years old, actually. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So she's not little
do.
anymore. Yeah.
Well, I do have a pet blue tongue that I've had since I was 9 years old, and I've still got it. I'm 46.
Yeah, okay. Wow. That's crazy.
Very long live some reptiles.
Yeah. No, if you look after them, they are.
Well, I hope listeners actually wanted to hear about snakes and
Yeah,
not
well,
paintball.
well, anyway, yeah, going back on topic, yeah, so let's go wind the clock back all the way to the beginning and learn how you started in the sport, how you got into it.
Well, I actually saw a news report in 1989 when I was in high school about paintball, and I went, "Oh, God, I'd love to play paintball. Is that a thing? Like, how do I get into this?" And I was only 15 at the time. But paintball is very different then. Actually, there was a lot of skin tight woodland camos that people wore, and scrim and UVEX goggles, and all this really daggy apparel, and the guns weren't really that crash hot. But it was still super cool to a young kid. And when I wasn't until 91, I think, because you were supposed to be 18 to play. But the day I was 17, I somehow managed to get into a booking at a dodgy paintball field. It was Bill Stark's paintball field, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Bill Stark has worked for Action Paintball too, but I played at his field, and it was in his backyard, or basically down the back of his place, which is like a nursery. And I played with Matt Myth Hawken.
Yeah, okay.
Who many of you may remember, because Matt and me started playing. He played paintball before and then got me into it, and then we continued playing together. He's my original paintball homeboy.
He's over in Western Australia now at the moment, isn't he? I think.
Actually, I don't know. He disappears.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, then I haven't seen for years, and then suddenly he pops up. So it happens to a lot of us, older blokes. So we played at this field, and he had a lot of guys from work, and I remember playing for the first time and shooting someone for the first time, and I think I even bunkered somebody. Nice. On our first day, going dunk, dunk, dunk. You could bunker people a lot easier in those days. You could just run at them, and the guns were terrible, so they could often not be able to shoot you, which is a bit hard. To hit somebody with a gun, it's not work.
So what kind of guns were they? Were they pump action then, or bolt?
No, well, they were the very first ones that I played with were SL68 ones. So they were a pump, but with no auto trigger, so you can't rapid fire them.
Okay.
That was the very first time. The next time I played was at Yarramundi, not long after that. And Yarramundi was a field run by a guy called Garth Young. And there's many stories about him with Michael Ivory earlier. He was one of those funny characters of the game. Many have come and gone. He disappeared. I think he had a lot of people money.
Yeah.
But he had a Barramundi, and it was a junkyard, basically. Bushfires have been through in about 94 and cleaned a lot of it out, but that's where we played. Yarramundi, and we played with bolt actions, but converted to pump. But the paintballs were in a tube beside the gun. You had to roll them, a 12-gram cartridge in the gun to power it. It was a CO2 12-gram cartridge, and you would have to roll the gun over sideways to get a paintball to go into the breech, and then push the pump forward. But it was converted from a pump action. Now, would you have got into paintball if you were playing like that?
I think I would have had a bit of an appeal. Like you probably would have felt a bit like a sniper, but I don't think I'd. It probably wouldn't have been something that I go back to multiple times.
Sniper, it had to be accurate, wouldn't it?
Yeah, true.
And they sometimes they were sort of accurate. Sometimes, most of the time, not. So very slow rate of fire. And there were other paintball guns, semi-automatic paintball guns. There's the PMI 3 and the 68 Special were the two main guns. We thought they were machine guns. Like they were around, but a lot of them were very problematic. There was a lot of problems early on. That's why early on a lot of people use pump action paintball guns in tournaments. They just went, I'm sick of this piece of shit, freaking PMI 3 or whatever. I'll just use something that actually works.
Yeah, fair enough.
So yeah, to cut a long story short, we played there for quite some time, and then Myth started playing tournaments, and he formed a team called Body Count, and they played at Yarramundi. I didn't play; it was a 5-man. I don't know. I hadn't played tournaments by then, but in early '93, Myth said, "Can you come and play a tournament?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I needed to get into that. We'd only played socially till then." And I went and played with the team he played with, which was called Totally Sus, and it was Garth Young's team. I hope his name. I hope I'm remembering his name's right. It was Garth. I'm pretty sure it was Garth Young, but yeah, he had a team called Totally Sus, and it was a ragtag collection. Actually, Manny Cargus was actually in that team before I joined it. Manny from Heartbreak Ridge that passed away just only about 18 months ago about 18 months ago. He was in that team, I remember. He was the first tournament players I've ever seen with these guys. Totally sus. So I played in their team. It was a 10-man at not Yarramundi, at Helensburgh. Helensburgh.
Okay.
So it was Michael's field. So that was my introduction to Michael. Actually, no, I'd met Michael at the indoor paintball field at Penrith. There was an indoor paintball field.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, sounds cool. It was all right, I guess, but it didn't. I don't think it went too far. That particular one. There was one at that Manny ran at Marrickville. That actually went a lot better. It was there around for a few years. So, we played this tournament at Yarramundi. It's open class in those days. And the first game I played was against the Brothers in Arms. Have you ever heard of the Brothers in Arms?
I haven't actually.
They're a bunch of bikies.
Oh, okay.
And you were scared to shoot them because they thought they were big bearded bikies, and if you shot them, you thought they might grab you and take you out in the paddock and flog you. They were scary guys, but they were a really good, aggressive team. Some of them which actually joined SWAT. A couple of years later, I'll go into that if you really want to hear. But so that was my first game, and I had a Buddor sniper. given to me. The butt or sniper is the basis for the autococker, but it's a pump action version, and it is no auto trigger. So you sort of go dunk. It's fairly accurate, but when you got all these guys come at you with semi-autos on the tyre field at Helensburgh, I was the last guy in, and I charged at them because I just thought I'm going to die. So I look, girl with my pump action butt or sniper, cranking, dunk, 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 like that. And that was my very first tournament. I think we came about, maybe sixth or something, or there's 10 teams, I think.
Yeah, that's good as long as you didn't come last.
Yeah, no, I think we all go into a team that comes last at one stage. But no, we did all right. From now on, we decided to keep on playing. But Totally Sus disappeared. I think we played with them one more time at the Rebel Tour, if I remember correctly, and that was at Helensburgh as well. Helensburgh was a big hub of tournaments in those days. So Michael actually got that going, the tournament scene. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's something that it doesn't come up often, the Helensburgh field. I know a lot of people had their first games there, but yeah, it sort of just drifts off in history sometimes.
Yes, it's still there. Steve Baylor still runs it. No, hang on, sorry. He sold it off. He's not into paintball anymore.
Yeah, I did see them advertising a little bit ago on Facebook. It popped up. Ads for that. The field at Helensburgh.
Yeah. A lot of fields have come and gone, but yeah, that was one field that's still around. And Yarramundi is one of the very originals.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that it's still going. Through doing this show, so many people have said that they played their first few events there, and it's crazy that it's all come full circle. We're still out there playing.
I love it. It's very nostalgic, really. If you think of yourself all those years ago playing there, and then if you could look forward in time, and here you are playing with these electro markers, like in the same place, it's such a different game. Anyway, so
yeah, but it's all gone full circle now. Everyone's back to mechanical guns, and people are interested in pump markers and stuff. So it's good.
It is. I'm going to buy my old pump gun. One of the guys has it. I saw it floating around, my old Sterling from the 90s. I haven't seen it for 20 years, and I'm buying it off a fella who's got it, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll sell it to you." And play a bit of bushball with it. But they were really fun. Pump action and paintball guns, actually, the original semi-autos, you could fire a pump action paintball quite quickly with an auto trigger. And some of the original teams just ran pumps. But like I say, I'll go more into that later with the different teams, if anyone really wants to listen. I don't know. Sure. I'm waffling on.
No, it's good. Waffle away. It's good. Any story is good about. I don't know. I'm very nostalgic for that period. Like the 90s and early 2000s was a good time for paintball, I think. So I'm keen to hear any stories of that. I don't really care. Waffle away.
Well, there's big shoes to fill after listening to The Simpsons. I mean, they're really, how many people would tune in to listen to them? Because they were like, I really want to know what they have to say because they've been so successful. But they're Swat brothers as well.
Yeah, no, it's we were talking before the show about the Swat legacy. It's crazy how long the team's been around for, and but it is something that we did say with the Simpsons. Yeah, not many people. It's normally the last team that you do play for. Unfortunately, with SWAT, normally people go into retirement.
So they actually did something new. Everyone else retires. I actually was on the roster for many years and then retired in 2000. But we had a very packed. Like I was in from early '95 to 2000, and we were playing everywhere and anywhere. We often played 2 tournaments in a month, and in different states.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, some of one of the things I remember doing an interview back then in 1997, and I had to list placings, and at that stage, only in 2 years, there was 13 first places that I'd experienced with SWAT, which was, I mean, pretty good, wasn't it? I thought that was all right.
Yeah. That's about how many first place I had with SWAT, and I was on the team for about 5 years.
Oh, I got a lot. It was hard in those days. Like, there were lots of serious teams as well. But, we came up with a bit of a... SWAT went through a lot of changes. And I actually originally was playing in other teams and played against them. And this was in the days when they wore the vests, like steel vests. Have you seen the pictures of them?
Yeah, I've seen some photos.
Yeah, they had scrim. They looked like bushballers, but with these black vests with the pods in a little all around the vest on front of them. And it was really weird. I had one of the original packs, which we have today, like a pack on you, as they are today. They came out probably about 92 or 93. But SWAT had these tactical vests and JT goggles and PMI 3s, I remember. And we played against them. One of the many teams I played on in those days. I used to just jump onto teams and one of the teams I played in was Stars and Bars. That was Bill Stark's team. And I'm trying to think of a modern day equivalent for Stars and Bars. And Stars and Bars were a ragtag mixture of older guys who were military buffs with a few of us younger guys, and they wore like Ozcams, and they were a funny bunch. They were really cool though. And the very first finals I ever played in was with Stars and Bars against SWAT. And this was in very early, it would have been 1994. And we played down at a field down at, no longer exists, down in Branxton. Oh, gee, I can't even think of the place's name now. It's in the Southern Highlands.
Yeah, okay.
Great in paintball. And we played, and we were really a ragtag bunch, like we really were. And we had to play against these pro teams of the era, and one was SWAT. And they'd had some wins. SWAT had, but not in the way that, not as many as they had years later. Like it was but they were definitely in one of those they were always a top 3 team. But there's a team called the Delegates. And the Delegates were one of the original teams that had a lot of success. And there might be even some delegates floating around these days. I did see one guy I remember from the Delegates when 2 years ago at the Yarramundi 10-man. There was an actual delegate. I mean, dude, you're a delegate. He's like, yeah, you remember me? I said, this little. Yeah. It's when you look back all those years and you think about all the fun you had in those days, and the people are still playing paintball all these years later.
Oh, it's a good sport. It's an all ages. It's very inclusive. It doesn't take a lot to get out on the field.
Yeah. So then it was a lot harder though, because you had to be over 18, even though you played long before, before we were 18. Anyway, you just said, "Oh yeah, I'm 18." But anyway, yeah. So we played Delegates and SWAT and Heat. Now there's a team called Heat from. If you've ever played Adventure Quest paintball,
I heard that was the one that used to be up the Putty Road, wasn't it?
That's the one.
Yeah.
And Will Perforth was the guy who ran that field. He was an interesting character, German character, very interesting character. He got his team heat, and they'd been training and training. They were really serious about being pro. We played, and we somehow blew into the finals. And we played. We played heat first, and we actually edged them out by kills, I think, somehow. And we thought, oh shit, this wasn't too bad. We just beat that team, and then we had to play SWAT. It was on a bush field, and we ended up maxing SWAT in the finals.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was like really weird because it was just a ragtag bunch, of basically bush ballers. And then we played the delegates, but they just pipped us, I think, and we lost to the delegates. So we ended up second. So that was the first time I'd ever been on the podium.
Yeah, nice.
And we had to knock out SWAT. So yeah.
I remember that field. Like, I never had the privilege of playing there. I think it's still around. I'm pretty sure the guys that own Camden Ultimate Paintball, I think it is. I think they've taken over up there.
Right.
I've seen some signs around, but apparently it had a really good woods field. Like, it was very bushy.
And it had termite mounds. I remember hiding behind a termite mound, like a big termite mound, shooting at the. That was my cover for that game. And SWAT. I remember that. That's 1993 or 4. Very early 1994. Can't quite recall. So, yeah. So that was, that really gave me a lot of excitement at the time, being a young little 19-year-old, and we had a trophy. And there's a picture in the magazine. The magazine did a big write-up because the Paintball magazine was quite a good magazine in the 90s that we had. I mean, you wouldn't have one these days. Is there even Paintball magazines around now?
Oh, there's a digital one. They put out some articles and stuff like that, I think.
No. Now we just all talk crap on Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, we're good at it.
Yeah, so that was my first hunger, to thought, oh man, we could probably be all right at this if we put our minds to it. And I was using a 68 Special by then. Now the 68 Special was a Tipman, or semi-auto, but I mean really archaic. Like, I just would love people to play with one now and see what they think. Really funny guns to play with, really loud and quite slow for a semi-auto. But yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about the best paintball teams of the era in those early days.
Yeah, go for it.
People listening, they might remember, and people these days might want to know. But the original pro team that I remember, which was the first actual pro team, was a team called the Regulators from Queensland. And Neil Martin was very famous as being a regulator for many years. But they started in the early 90s, around the same time as SWAT. And they're like a lot of them did martial arts, and they went to. There was even a story that they all went to motivational classes to perform. I don't know how true that is. You'd have to ask one of the actual regulators of the time. But they were a very serious team. SWAT was a serious team at the time, pretty serious. And so was a team called the Delegates, I mentioned earlier. And there was another team called Magnum. And Magnum was Steve Ballas's team and many people remember Steve Ballas. They were a bunch of Greeks. They're all Greek. And they were the first, I remember the first team that had all semi-autos. They all had them. And they were pink guys. So that was the very early 90s teams that were pro. There were other ones, but those teams had the most successes of that time.
It sounds like the PMI threes were the hot gun back then.
Yeah, you'd think so. Like, I think if you talk to Mick about them, he'd know more. But I never had one. I thought they were rubbish. I mean, honestly, I thought they were. If you had a really good one, maybe, I don't know. I never actually got to even play with one. I fired one a few times. But you see, at that stage, auto mags and auto cockers were around, but there was a ban on semi-auto paintball guns, and you couldn't bring any semi-auto paintball guns legally into the country, so you had to use whatever was available, and all that was available legally was Titman 68 specials and PMI 3s.
Okay.
So that's all you had. And we had them, like America, you could get anything. Any other country, you could get anything. But in Australia, at that stage, auto cockers and auto mags were to go everywhere else except for Australia. But people had them, like, illegally,
Yeah.
but they couldn't use them. And I remember actually a game we played, Matt Hawken had a VM68, which is an updated PMI3. It was like the next generation of them, but they're illegal. So he wrapped it in camo scrim so you couldn't tell what it was, and tried to play with it. Actually, this is my first tournament. Another little flashback. And he's playing with it, and I remember Michael Wybrew coming over and going, "That's an illegal gun." 100 points. Exactly what it was. There was no fooling him. You could wrap it as much scrim as you like, but that's a VM68. And he was like, I have to use a bloody whatever, a pump gun now. But that's the conditions we had at that time, So these rubbish guns, and you couldn't get the newest technology, which was the auto mag and the auto cocker, of course. But then the laws changed. Probably early '94 or so, and all of a sudden you could have auto mags and auto cockers. But I liked the auto mag at the time because it seemed really sleek and really quick shooting gun, and the auto cocker seemed like a bit of a contraption,
Yeah.
Everything moving on it, and the early ones weren't really, unless you knew them, they weren't really crash on. But I ended up with an auto cocker later and never looked back. When John Caruana was the our airsmith, and he was just magic with them. And we all ran auto cockers eventually and started. There was an auto mag versus auto cocker rivalry for years, and if people used to put stickers on their guns, on their hoppers saying mags are for fags.
Yeah. There's actually there's one out the back of an Action, like, stuck somewhere, and I always see that and think, like, I don't even remember auto mags. Like, what's this sticker mean? It's a relic.
Mags, yeah. No, they were really good of the era. But I mean, I don't want to get too romantic about these things because, like I say, the guns now, even those basic guns, are way better, like in reliability and just about every way. They were fairly accurate, but mechanical guns now are much better. Even a mechanical, like EMAC, you can crank them like nothing else compared to an old auto mag.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talk about John and his work on the autocockers. Like, I remember there was a guy that he was having a lot of issues. When I first started, he was using an autococker, had all these issues, took it to John. John got it shooting sweet. And so, about 30 minutes later, he's like, "Oh, it's not working again." And John's like, "Well, what did you do?" He said, "Oh, well, I wanted to work out how you fixed it, so I pulled it apart." And that was, that's the story I've heard about them. But it sounds like, if you have an autococker and you know what you're doing, or you know someone that knows what they're doing, you can get them to shoot really well.
Oh, I just fell in love. I think I ran the auto mag for some time and thought it was the best thing ever. And then, we just got these autocockers in, and we started to go to autocockers. And if it wasn't for John, though, we wouldn't have had very good ones, and we would have just stuck with auto mags, I suppose. So, Yeah, I found the cocker the more accurate. I don't know, just more accurate, and they're a bit like, I find the LV1 is like the auto cocker of today, in a way, because there's something moving. You know what I mean?
Yep.
When
Yeah.
something's moving on the gun and you're firing it, it just feels like it's firing, doesn't it? Like it
Yeah,
feels
okay.
like it does more damage or something when it's just a psychological thing. But just cockers, the back block would be firing, coming backwards and forwards and making a noise, and it just seemed really cool at the time.
Yeah, when just watching people shoot them nowadays, like, yeah, every time someone just fires a few rounds to it, everyone looks like it's just that sound so iconic to the autococker. And yeah, having moving parts on the outside is not something you see very often with guns.
No, but you've still got the bolt. You can see the bolt moving on a poppet valve gun like an LV1.
Ah, yeah, okay. I know what you mean now. Yeah. Yeah.
So that it, yeah, and they were all guns were basically a poppet valve. So was the automatic? Oh, they'll blow forward. But anyway, that was it. Automags and autocockers, and this went on for quite some time. And as more automags and autocockers came to country, people started getting rid. We were playing with our automags against people with freaking like 68 specials, and it was horrible to them because they'd be going dunk, 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 and you go and just shoot them up. It was really quite an advantage, unfair, I thought, but I didn't really care at the time.
As long as you're on the winning side, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, the first tournament I played with my automatic in another team called we were called Rhythm Method. That was the team. It was a team with Peter Russell that I played in at Mount White, and I played with my automag, and I was shooting this thing, and it was just like, it was the craziest thing on the field at the time. Just this, how much paint you could get out of this automag accurately, and yeah, we ended up making the finals with. Well, you played a 5-man with 4 players, a whole tournament,
and made the finals.
Made the finals, and I just before the finals, like the Sunday morning, I twisted my ankle so badly we thought it was broken, and it swelled up, and I couldn't move. I kept on playing, and I had to hop. I had to actually hop, and I was hopping around, and I had to sort of sit down and shoot. And in the finals, we ended up third, and that was I got some prizes for something. I can't remember what it was. That's right. It was an MVP award, and they gave me this whole bunch of there was a gear bag and new goggles, and it was like as part of the package for winning, for my efforts hopping around, like literally hopping.
You painted
around.
a good picture. What kind of field was it back then? Were you on, like, was it in the woods still, or were you on pallets?
No. Paintball fields are all bush fields, and they resembled exactly the same as bush fields do today, other than not as much work as some of the fields, especially the fields in action. They put a lot of work into them, and they've got like earth moving equipment, makes a big difference. But they were bush fields, and there was a few little pallet fields, like that sort of thing. And in America, it was even worse at the time. You should have seen their fields. They're just a pile of sticks. Oh, yeah, I'll put a pile of sticks here, and you can hide behind that. And then there'll be a big tree, and there would be a bit of a creek. They were very, very natural fields. And this was for quite a few years. It was bushball only. And speedball was played on open fields with like wooden barricades or tyres. I remember at Helensburgh, the tyre fields. So they would stack tyres and they weren't the best bunkers because there's lots of holes to get shot through.
So, you mentioned fields in America. Did you ever get a chance to go over and play in the States?
Oh, I'll get onto that. Actually, yes, we certainly did. I'll have to tell that in a minute though, because I've got something else.
Okay, go
Because
for it.
around this time, this is when I got approached. I played I had a run with the regulators at Helensburgh. The other big team of that era was the Top Hat Jokers. I'll talk more about them too. And they were another great bunch of guys. And I actually played in them in one tournament in '94. I remember I did play with them once. They, hang on, I got off a tangent there, didn't I? Top Hat Jokers. Well, anyway, I played with this one tournament. I played at Helensburgh with the regulators, and the regulators were like the real pro team, but they were going for a few changes, and they got a few of us that they picked from different teams, and they said, "Can you come play with us at this next tournament?" Because they'd only had 5 or 6 of their guys coming, and it was a 10-man. And I played with them with my Automag, and that's the first time we ever used their systems. So before that, all CO2. This first tournament was the first tournament with air bottles. And have you ever seen those bottles, Scott? Have you ever seen these
No,
bottles?
I don't think so. No.
They're like scuba tanks. That's what they were, the size of it. The big one, like I think it was, and they only filled to 3,000 psi. And we're the first team, one of the first teams that had all air. But I borrowed air of someone. I can't remember who it was. The Air America air system. We had to run them on remote lines. Like they were so big, it was hard to put them on the gun. But some people did. And it gave you a good advantage in winter because you could shoot. Your gun didn't freeze. Did you know guns used to freeze up? You'd shoot them and they'd freeze and stop working.
Yeah, I like working at the field, like doing punters and stuff like that. Yeah, in winter I used to see it, and especially if they were shooting downhill a lot, playing on hilly fields with drawing liquid into the guns and stuff like that. Yeah, the joys of CO2.
Yeah, and the velocity would drop off, and if you kept on firing, it got worse. So you had to stop firing, and then you'd sort of try to warm it up anyway. Air got rid of that. And there was an American team that came over. The very first time that a real serious American team came over was a team called Rage, Todd Adamson's team. He came over for that tournament, and he brought all these all-stars with him that guested on his team. One was Danny Love from Aftershock, and another guy was the Gardner brothers from the All-Americans. They own Smart Parts. Right, they come and play. Now, you should see them guys play in the bush, like the Gardner brothers. I've never really experienced anything like it in bush paintball. These guys could play like you wouldn't believe in the bush. I can't even explain how accurate they were and how good they were. They could crawl up and shoot you. Oh, it was scary stuff. So I played in that tournament, and I think we ended up just missing out the finals. But it was an all-star. There was a lot of really good teams. There's probably about 16 teams in the comp, 10-man teams, and I think we just missed the finals and got 5th or something. I can't remember for sure. But after that tournament, I was approached by the captain of SWAT, and the captain of SWAT was Rod Lewis. He was the captain. He actually approached me and explained that he'd like some young blood in the team. And I went, oh yeah, like I was a young guy, only 20 years old at that time. Yeah, I'll come and play. Yeah, I've got an auto mag. How cool's that? So they invited me to come and practice, and we had to practice at. I think we practiced at Yarramundi when I first played with them. And SWAT was in 2 different. We run it SWAT because it was 10-man. We run like left side and the right side. There were 2 separate squads, And when we'd practice the left squad versus the right squad. And I was on the left squad, I think, with the guys from the Brothers in Arms, Chica and Roscoe. And Chica was like a dad to me when I joined the team. He's a big bearded bloke that was, his bikey, I'll tell you about.
Yeah.
They were one of them, and they were these scary bikey guys, but they took me under their wing. And I ended up playing on their tape as their tape guy. And I could run up the tape really quick, you know. And so they were like, this is good to have a young guy, because they were a bit in their 30s by then, and they were sort of a bit slower. And I'm telling you now, nobody actually trained in any sort of, not like today, not like athletes. People with beer guts played paintball. And anyway, so I played with, and we played the 10-man at Yarramunny. That was the first event in 1995. So that was my first tournament with SWAT. So, by the way, before I go any further, I'd like to mention Chica and Roscoe are actually now both passed away, which is really sad, because when they passed away, it was at a time that we lost contact with them, so we didn't get to attend their funerals or anything.
Oh, that's a shame. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's really sad. We've lost a few players over the years. I suppose we could go more to that later, but Chica and Roscoe they were like dads to me, you know, like these old Viking sort of types, but they took me under their wing. And that is when they gave me the nickname Rookie.
Cool. That was an origin story. I like it.
And actually, the name Rookie also came from that first tournament. There was an American team that came out, pro-American team, called Bad Company.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. You played them later. They came out in
2008, 2007 they came out as well, but they talked quite a lot about coming out in the 90s when they were here.
And another team that introduced Tom Cole was the captain. Tom Cole is the president now of the NXL. This is how history's here. Tom Cole's the president of the NXL. Anyway, he was the captain. His team, they were an excellent team. But as it turned out, we actually paraded them in the prelims and we beat them. We just tried really hard and we actually ended up beating them. And American teams were so well above Australian teams in those days. But we ended up pipping them, and we ended up then playing them again in the finals. And that is the time that one of those memorable times in paintball for me, because we're playing this big final in front of all these spectators. There's a lot of spectators, and two of them were my mum and dad.
Oh, cool.
And we played on what is now, you know where the Hyperball field is in Yarramundy?
Yep.
That was a big field with a dam in the middle. And junk lying everywhere. And that was the main field. We played on that. And we played Bad Company, yeah. So mum and dad are watching. First time they've ever watched me play paintball. And I had just one of those games where everything went right. And it's 10-man. And my captain, Rod Louis, he said to me, I like to run way up the field and get at that far, far bunker. But he said, no, Rookie, don't go to the far bunker. Go to the one just back. And just run there and start shooting. And I did exactly why I used to go in the wise old owl, Rod Louis. And so I ran to this bunker, dropped and started shooting. And his plan worked amazingly well. These Americans are a really aggressive team, and they kept on moving up to this one position. And it was a big boiler. The boiler's still there, actually, at Yarramunny. It's a big boiler that's on one of the other fields. And it's round. And what was happening, when you run up to it, if you didn't watch where your feet were, you could shoot them in the feet. And one by one, they'd go up to this freaking thing and I'd snap shoot them out. Like it was a really, like they automatic shot really well. And it just, they kept on doing the same thing. I shot one, and it was all on video. Actually, it was all video too, and I remember watching it. And it was just one kill after another, going to the same spot. It was really weird of this American pro team. It was just the only mistake they really made, and we ended up beating them.
Wow, that's awesome.
I think it was the most kills too. It was just pure luck that Rod Louie had sent me to this bunker that had this perfect angle where they would run up and just sit there, and I'd shoot them through this boiler, just where it was their feet would be, and this went on and on and on. They kept on replacing their guys because it was like a key bunker, but they just didn't look at it properly. After that, we won. We actually won first place.
Yeah, it's a big team to take down too.
It was at the time. I can't even explain to you or anyone out there in paintball land how good it felt being a young bloke and playing with this pro team. And from that moment on, we would go and play other tournaments as SWAT for many years. Yeah, it's very nostalgic. Hope that paints a nice picture for anyone listening.
No, it does. It's yeah, you don't get moments like that all the time in paintball, but they definitely stick with you. So and what better team to do it against?
Yeah, and we won 10 grand.
Wow.
10 grand was first place.
There's a lot of
So
money.
then that was. Oh, there was money, yeah. But it cost a lot of money to play too. And that's always been a thing. It's never been exactly a cheap sport at competitive level. Because, people are willing to spend money to win.
Yeah, that's true.
And today's exactly, people spend a lot of money. They shoot a lot of paint. So we continued on as SWAT, but it was SWAT 10-man, and of course there was 5-man events and 7-man events that would pop up, and we would fill 2 5-man teams for 5-man events. And in that first year, I think we got, I've got a list there somewhere, 3 first places and a second in that first. I think it was the first. I don't know. I might have been in the team for 6 months. First 6 months was those pretty good results. SWAT had gone through a lot of changes and continued to evolve, actually. It's the thing about the team. It's always evolved. And, so getting on to the next year, that's when we went to America in 96 to play in the World Cup.
Awesome.
Yes. So the World Cup, that was the time when that's it. We're going to America. And the World Cup is a crazy event. You can't imagine even people can't imagine what it's like to have 400 teams turn up to a tournament. And in 10-man teams alone, I think there's 200 10-man teams at least that competed in this event. And we played in amateur class though over there, pro and amateur.
Yep.
We went amateur because it was. I'm telling you, the pro teams there was a lot of them, and it was very competitive. So we played in amateur. We played in the 5-mans over there as well. So we split up into 2 teams. So actually, no, there was over 100 10-man teams. That's right. I think we ended up in maybe 30th place or something. I can't remember exactly. I looked it up once. It's still on the internet. But yeah, about 100 teams. Which actually was really good because when you're a new team playing in America in the NPPL, you're seeded at the bottom. So low-seeded teams have to play the hardest teams. And the hardest teams got to play just to get them through the prelims. And if there was another highly seeded team, you didn't face them. They were in a different pool. So it kept the top teams that were most likely to be contenders to win apart from the prelims. So both amateur and pro played each other. Like there was a mixture. You play other pro teams if you're pro and amateur, and vice versa. So
Yeah.
the first game was the All Americans. 5 minutes. The All Americans have not dropped a game in 2 years. And we played the first game against them on the hyperball field. They had a hyperball field, bush fields, but the hyperball was the main event. And it's actually on video. I remember seeing it on a TV show. And our game came up because it was just the first game of the event. And we actually shot a couple of them out. And we lost to them, but we actually had a really good game against them. And that's my first memory. And then I walk off the field, and how's this? I always ran my velocity at a reasonable I've never been one of those people that run it right on the edge. I remember Michael Weber used to get done for hot guns. He'd always, he'd run at 290. I'd run a little bit lower. I walked off and got a penalty for a hot gun because this gun was had one of the original air systems from Australian air system from Mac Developments.
Oh yeah, yep.
Air system. I've still got it.
Oh, cool.
Another scoop, it looks more like a fire extinguisher. There you go. Running around playing paintball with a fire extinguisher hanging off your gun. But it spiked, and I went over 300 per second, and I got a penalty. And the maximum you could get per game was like 60 points, and I got a 100-point penalty. And I was the guy to get penalties ever. It was just, and I got a hot gun penalty walking off, and I'm like, fuck this bloody autococker! Damn you, autococker! But it never let me down again.
Just when it really mattered.
Yeah. And the other memorable part of the event was in the Tan Man. We also played the Aftershock. Now, Aftershock, powerhouse teams. Aftershock, Ironmen, All Americans, all really top teams. These guys were always winning events. And
yeah,
they were
that's the 90s was just all they did was just swap first place between those few teams, wasn't it?
Pretty much. Yeah, Aftershock, especially on those fields, Aftershock was just... We played Aftershock. We had a really good game. They would take their time. They were 25-minute games. And they would sort of whittle you away. They didn't make stupid mistakes. They just sort of slowly but surely sort of just crept over you. And they had crawlers that got down and snuck up. It's all on video, a lot of it too. I've noticed if you ever Google World Cup 1995 or something, you'll see some of the games. And 1996, you can actually see how Aftershock played. And it looks really, really crap on video. I'm warning you. You ever want to watch a paintball game, and you got a little bit of time and you're really bored, I'd watch it. But other than that, paintball was not a spectator sport at the time. It just, a lot of players you couldn't see. You couldn't quite tell what was going on. That's why they invented hyperball, to bring you out in the open and spectators could watch.
Yep.
So we went over there, had an amazing time over there. We travelled a little bit around America too, me and a couple of other guys. I went to New Orleans and I went to Las Vegas, and I went out in the desert. Anyway, I had a big holiday, and we came back. And when we came back, a lot of our players started. A few left the team, and for 1997, we had a kind of like a different team, and a little. It was a little bit of, as you all know, it can get hard emotionally in a team in the pit area after a game. Didn't go well. I'm sure you've all experienced this. But a few of the guys changed. The roster changed, and by 1997, actually, a couple of the guys from the Top Hat Jokers come and joined us. One was Matt Hawken, and the other was Mad Dog.
Nice.
Sure, you know Mad.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Darren Hall.
Doggy. Yeah.
They joined the team, and we went through this transformation in terms of the dynamics of the team. We were all committed, but we all got we were more athletic, I think. And we were really committed to winning. And 97 really changed. I think we won every tournament we played except for one. We came second.
That's pretty good. And like you said, there was more than just like 4 or 5 events a year back then.
Oh, we went to, like, you'd often go to 15 events in a year.
Yeah, it's nuts.
It was, but like some of them, and this is the thing, some of the big events that, like the ones that Michael put on, but there was the South Pacifics up at the Gold Coast War Museum, and Tim McCarthy still was up at the War Museum, and he would run these big South Pacific tournaments, and that was one we'd go away to Queensland. It was the first time I ever went to Queensland, just to play in the South Pacifics, but that was back in '94. I played in like a team, I think it was Stars and Bars or something. But by '97, we were going up to Queensland quite regularly, and it was the best time of paintball of that era, you know. Everyone had automags and autocockers, and the sport had evolved. Snap shooting became a thing. It was the sport of, thanks to the Americans coming over, and thanks to the commitment of the team members to being better. And the Top Hat Jokers were training and getting really into it. And the regulators, ended up changing into a team called Vengeance. You obviously interviewed Neil Martin?
Yep. And
Neil Martin would have told you the story of Vengeance.
Yeah, it doesn't come to mind at the moment, actually. I'm sure it does. I've done so many. It all blurs into one.
But that was 96. I know I played Vengeance in 96.
Yeah, we did. We spent a lot of time with Neil on like his trip to America and winning the World Cup and stuff. So I don't know if we got onto Vengeance. It's not in my notes. Oh yeah, here, Vengeance. Yeah, I made it. I literally just wrote the word Vengeance, but I didn't write anything else down about it.
I have to mention them because they were our arch enemy at the time. And even though I don't have arch enemy, I'm telling you now, I've never had arch enemy in life in paintball. I like paintball. I like people that play paintball. I don't get into the bitching and get upset with people because they did this, or I don't like that guy because he said that. But they were our arch, like, sort of rival. They were a very rival team. And so was Black Rain. I have to mention Black Rain because if there's any old players that played in Black Rain, they'd be, oh, Rookie mentioned Black Rain. We were really good. There's another team that would win a lot of tournaments too. Like, they were right up there. But Vengeance gave us the biggest, that was our most rival team of the era. So yeah, paintball went on 98, 99, played everywhere. We didn't go back to America though. The team actually went to Europe at one stage, but it was a disaster. Like, it was, if you ever heard about some of the trips overseas, they weren't what you thought they'd be. I've heard a lot of. You've been overseas, haven't you?
Yep.
In Asia.
All around Asia, yeah.
And I've heard some horror stories about the way they run these tournaments, and you're like, what? And they don't want you to win. Or
yeah. I've heard Mike's story about France multiple times. So, yeah, it sounds like it was pretty horrible.
It's a long way to go. And that's the same with the World Cup. It's a long way to go to have a 12-year-old referee tell you you're out for spray, or like it was very inconsistent refereeing, like big fields, and people could try and run you down and shoot you, and you shoot them, and then they just keep running and shooting you, and there's no one there to see it. And they'd call you out. The referee eventually come over. So this was a big problem in paintball at that time. So we kept on playing, but up in the year 2000, paintball really went downhill at one stage, and the tournaments we just won as many tournaments, and mate, I retired. Well, from SWAT at the time, I couldn't commit to practicing when there was no tournaments, and I just think you just burn out.
There's a peak, like especially with it is hard to travel and it's hard to do all that, and eventually it just sort of becomes a bit monotonous, doing the same thing against the same teams.
Yeah, and the other thing was I was riding motorbikes a lot. I started racing a little bit too, and then do you know how freaking expensive that is? Paintball's a freaking a hobby in comparison to how much money you have to spend on racing motorcycles. So I did a bit of racing, but once again, I only did that for a short period because I just couldn't afford it. But I spent a lot of time on motorbikes. That distracted me away for a while from paintball. But I would guest on teams up to around 2004 was the last time I think I played in a team with Neil Martin, and he doesn't remember this. How's this? He doesn't remember this. I was talking to him the other day. You remember the team we played that tournament and we won? He's like, oh, I don't remember. I'm like, how do you not remember the time we won together? He's like, oh, I don't know. He's played that many tournaments.
Yeah.
At Action, and that was on an airball field. So airball had become the thing, and now no longer there was any bush. By about 2002, I think, or 2001, we weren't playing the bush anymore at all. It was just airball, and electronic markers started to take over, but semi-auto only. They could ramp some of them, but you can only use them on semi-auto. And that was it, 2004. And pretty much didn't play till 2018.
Yeah, right. So you're back. It's good.
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose. Yes. But Mick wanted the 10-man, Yarramundi. He said, Rookie, you can come back and be the 10-man. I'm like, okay, all right. Actually, that sounds pretty cool. Because I tell you now, and if anyone's listened this far, the one thing I can tell you, some of the proudest moments of my life have been playing paintball. It mightn't seem like just a stupid sport where you run around and shoot paintballs at each other, but some of the proudest moments, I put so much effort, so much passion into winning, and I'm sure any of people that have had any success will say the same thing. And you look back on those times, and that's what really I said, look, I've got to come back and play. I'd watched Through the Fence over the years, and I'd made friends with you on Facebook and The Simpsons and Alex Orr as well. So a lot of the current SWAT players of the era I would keep up to date with, and watch SWAT. I'd even come watch Through the Fence sometimes, like some sort of creep, looking through the fence, watching you play. I did that quite a few times over the years. Hope that doesn't sound awkward.
No, I remember Mike was always good. Anytime an old SWAT player comes in, Mike always brings him over and introduces. So it's yeah, it's good.
Sometimes we'll go, hi guys, I used to play you, and they'd go, oh yeah, that's nice. Like it was, we're gonna go and play, and I'm like, oh, good luck. And it was almost like that when I came in 2008. We played the 10-man and we won. But no one had played 10-man since the 90s, so we had a very clear advantage. All of us had played before at that format at a high level. So after we I thought, I got to, maybe I could play some Super Sevens as well. And so I started playing a game.
Yeah.
And I wanted, but paintball, I'm telling you now, paintball now is everything that I wished for when I was just a little rookie at 20 years old as SWAT. What the game is now is what I hoped it would become. Like everyone, effort, would practice. We couldn't get people to do that back in those days.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, trying to get people to have less than a six pack before the night before practice. It's just was unheard of.
Now, no one, they all freaking work out and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, have meal plans for the day and all sorts of things.
I know. But anyway, so that was the thing about paintball now, and I'm playing now, and I've played in a few different teams too. But the most memorable times obviously been with SWAT Recon and the Hyperball event that we just played that you talked to Jacker about.
Yep.
That event was an incredibly emotional experience because I don't think people realise how much we loved playing this game back in the 90s. And here we were playing it with current SWAT members. And did really well.
No, it's cool. It's good that I do like. I guess it's just taken that long for the sport to sort of grow up and have no offense, but like older guys in the sport and there's just an interest now in 10-man and in mechanical and going back to the old school. So it's good that I think it's the format sort of brought a lot of you guys back out of the woodwork. It's been great. I've seen all sorts of people popping up because of the way that the sport's sort of shifting now. Yeah, it's good.
Yep. And then that 7-man, after we played that, I played with the younger SWAT guys, the young guns we call them. Every era, people have got better. But they've taken on the skills of the previous generation and added new ones. And I'm telling you now, players of today, many people have added to this. You know, we were talking this with the Simpsons. Like they can tell you more about the last 10 years than I possibly could. But every generation has got better. And there's more accuracy, there's more movement, there's more communication. It's the sport has grown so much, and I've like come out of the time machine in 2000, dropped out of a time machine and played, and that's what it feels like. So this advanced future, you know.
Yeah, it's cool. Well, we're living the future now. So we're starting to run out of time. So before we wrap things up, was there anyone while you got the air that you wanted to give a shout out to? Someone that you might want to thank, or any sponsors or anything like that? If you've got any.
How much time have you got? I mean, there's so many people. From my whole career, all the guys I played with, but obviously I always mention SWAT guys, and if I can get away from just the SWAT guys, like all the other guys that play pods, there's not just one team, and there's lots of teams that are really good. And guys that I've played with over the years, I could. Some of the guys that have passed away, you might have mentioned. I mentioned Tolson.
Yep.
He was one of my greatest brothers on the field. He passed away in 2005. Chick and Chubsy, they passed away as well. There was a top hat joker called Ivan Lees, and he was a great player, and he died in 2010, I believe. Went to his funeral, and then Manny Cargus was another player that passed away just 18 months ago. Went to his funeral as well. So I thought I'd mention them. Yeah,
no, it's unfortunately we've lost too many paintballers to it's a shame. But it's a strong family that we people people that you play a sport with, and they're the ones that are there at the end at your funeral, showing respect. So I think it shows the kind of respect that we all have for each other and what a big family paintball is.
Yeah, and now there's this So like, I'm trying to share a little bit of that old magic with some of my guys now, like especially Ricky, Bobby, and Jacka and Geza. Like I'm telling you, these guys are great guys to hang around with, eh? And it's like watching the kids that you're watching your kids do much better than you, like even better than you did. Do you know what I mean? Like you're like a proud dad to be involved with any of the guys now. That's the way I feel, I suppose.
Yeah. Oh, I feel the same with SWAT. I'm in my 30s and I feel like all these new young kids coming in taking the spotlight. I know how you feel.
But yeah, so lots of other teams, like you know who else is really friendly? Ryan from the Marauders. I've always spoken to a lot. He's been really helpful and seems to try and help other teams and so forth. But I could go on. I do go on a bit. I'm warning you. I do go on a bit. So they're the kind of guys I want to mention.
Yeah. No, it's good. Well, thanks for that. But just before I let you go, would there be someone that you could recommend to be on the show?
Yeah. Now I have heard you talking to people about this, and we do try to not make it all SWAT. Yeah. But it's hard to get around that because there's so many players. But if I was to say somebody else that played paintball for a long time and sort of, what about Andrew Murphy, or Monkey, as people know him, from Top Gun Paintball Fields? He was the captain of the Regulators in the 90s, and he's in Queensland Paintball. He'd be an interesting person to talk to. But other than that, I've got to be biased as a SWAT guy. John Caruana. He's been around the whole time and quietly in the background.
Yeah.
And played for SWAT for many years. And John was the player that, for some reason, your front guys got all the attention, but he was the guy that kept us together. He was the back guy. He was the Alex Orr of the era. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
That guy that just fired a line over your head and just knew it was calm. And his gunsmithing skills, airsmithing skills, we call it. So he's a magic with guns, paintball guns. He's the most experienced in the country, and he may have a story to tell he might want to share with you. He might not. He might say, no, I don't want to talk with you. Who knows?
I'll twist his arm.
I'm sure you can drag one out of him.
Yeah, no, Johnny, yeah, I think everything I've ever learned about a gun, he's good. He's a guy that I've learned early that you go to him with, like if you take your gun to him and just say, fix it, he'll say no. But if you say, this is what I've tried and this is what I think's wrong with it, he'll say, okay, I'll show you how to fix it. So he's a good teacher. He's been a good teacher to me anyway, John.
Yes, yeah. And look, there's a lot of other great things about paintball now. The Eskimos brothers have brought a lot. I mean, there's so many players playing because there's the Eskimo brothers, and I've had a run with the Eskimo brothers in semi-pro as well.
Oh, cool.
They just have a home. They're a big family. So we never had that, a team with 70 people on the roster. You know what I mean? That's one of the new things in paintball, is the arrival of the Eskimos, whether you like it or not. It's helped paintball, hasn't it?
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. It is. It's something, if you want to go and play an event on the other side of the country and you don't know anyone, you just call the Eskimos up. I'm sure they've got a team going in. You jump on. Yeah, it's great.
So I hope I mentioned everyone. Sure, there's people I haven't mentioned. I'm sorry. Probably remember later. But that's just came to mind.
Yeah, we try and keep them to an hour. We've gone a little bit over, but it's hard to fit so much history and so many people and memories and everything into the time limit. So I'm sure we'll get another chance to have a chat and fill in some of the gaps as things progress.
I wonder if anyone's asleep by now. Wake up. Hello.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Rob. We better leave it there. We'll it will let everyone go back to sleep if they just woken up.
No worries. I'll let myself out. That's all right. Hang on. I'll just get it.
All right, Rob. Well, thanks very much for sitting down with me, and all the best with snake catching. I hope it goes well.
Oh, yeah. It's funny, but I'll keep on doing that. It's one of those things that I really enjoy from paintball.
All right, Rob. Well, yeah, all the best with all that and everything, and yeah, hopefully we'll see you out in the field again soon. Have a
Oh,
good
yeah,
one.
I practiced today,
Oh,
and
wow.
in 2 weeks playing a tournament, the Eskimo Cup.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'm going to drop in with my daughter. We're going to come check out paintball.
I will come and talk to you.
Yeah.
Morning, yeah.
Oh,
And make
awesome.
All
All
right.
right, Rob. We'll
It's
see
an
you there.
honour.
Thank you. All right.
No
Have a good
worries.
day. See ya.
Bye.
That is a wrap on another episode of Down Under Paintball. Thank you once again for Rob Ambrose, aka Rookie, for having a chat with us. So chatting with Rob before and after the show, he gave me some stats on his own personal awards. So the APPL, which was the Australian Paintball Players League, he's made it on the Dream Team in 1997 and 1999. And in 1997, he was the APPL Pro Player of the Year. There's another award that he let me know, but I still haven't got the answer out of him yet. But in 1997, he won the Paintball Disco God Award. So if you do bump into him, perhaps you guys can fish the answer of that one out. But something that Rob brought up while we were chatting is that he just really hopes that, you know, he's had a break for about 15 years, but he's back out playing. He's played 3 events this year with coronavirus and all that going down. But he did mention to me that he hopes that he'll inspire some of the other old school ballers to get back out and get back onto the field. So you can tell by Rob's attitude there and just how he talked in the interview that he really just has a genuine love for the sport, which is so cool to see, and I hope to see Rob crushing people on the field soon. Now, I know in Neil's episode he did recommend myself to be interviewed on the show, so I thought I'll do the next best thing, and I'm going to do a bit of a Q&A episode. So instead of me trying to answer what I think you guys want to know, I'm throwing it out to the listeners. So if there's any questions that you wanted to ask myself, it doesn't have to be just about me or my career. It could be anything about the paintball industry, or even if we are going to do some of these coaching episodes, if it was something that you wanted a bit of a tip with or anything like that, I'm going to throw it open. So there'll be a post going up on social media on Facebook soon. So if you do have a question that you want to ask me or the show, just make sure you either direct message me on Facebook, just search out the page Down Under Paintball, find me, Scott Martin, or you can email me at dupaintball@outlook.com. And with that, we will wrap it up on this episode of Down Under Paintball. See you next week.